Welcome. Thank you for joining this webinar. This is part of a series of webinars that will talk about how marketing these days is being performed in especially the B2B space. And we will do that along the lines of sort of three areas of marketing framework that I have found helps in the B2B space. We have talked a little bit in previous sessions about relevance and reputation. Let me see if I can mute everybody here. Relevance really being about who do you market to and what are you trying to market, why. So assuming you have that in place, you have personas. If you're small, you may have just a keyword list, but that is very targeted. It really describes what you think your audience would be looking for, would be asking for. Reputation is more about if you start something, can you sustain it? Because everything you do in marketing will impact your brand. And if it's not positive, then it might be negative if you start something and you're not able to do a good quality job, or you're not able to live up to expectations. So sustaining that is incredibly important when you think about content marketing, for example, also what to build your brand and reputation. That's not what we're talking about today. Relevance and reputation, we sort of assume that has been taken care of. You're all in, you've committed to content marketing, you know who you want to market to, you know what you want to say, and you're able to sustain it once you start it. Your newsletter will not go dark after the first few instances. So let's say you have all that in place. Today is really about execution. How do you then measure and manage your content marketing efforts? When you think about execution, again, it is really important that it is grounded in that relevance and reputation foundation. Execution is not just about pumping out a lot of content, or showing a lot of visitors, or showing a lot of followers on Twitter. It's really about how this content that you publish, that you manage, align with building your reputation over time in a relevant way to an audience that's relevant for you. Some of you have seen this picture before. This is about all the things you can do in modern sort of digital marketing that have a mix of long-term impact and are very scalable, or that may have a shorter shelf life but are very important to get things going. You would see those things on the left. I just wanted to bring this back to quickly show all the places where content is critical to be able to do these marketing tactics. If you want to have a great website, you need great content. If you want to do A/B testing, you need to have variations of your content, whether it's for an email, for a paper, for a web page, or for a campaign. If you want to have a great blog that people will follow, you will need content, especially if you want those followers to be relevant for you. So this is really the business case why having a great content marketing foundation will help you do a lot of your other marketing. Let's get into managing and measuring content marketing. One of the challenges that I often run into is that content marketing success is defined differently in different stages of the life cycle of a marketing function, for different companies, for different purposes, for different ways of doing content marketing. And I'm gonna share with you three examples of that. The first one is you will do content marketing sometimes to drive and build brand awareness. That is one reason to do content marketing. Another reason would be to drive engagement with your audience. Another reason could be to drive demand, to drive leads. Those are different reasons to do content marketing. Let's talk a little bit about what that would mean for how you would measure and manage the content marketing performance. Brand awareness is what we're looking at here. When you think of brand awareness and using content to drive your brand, metrics that could be interesting are, for example, how many unique people see your content, unique page views. Is that leading to people actually sharing your content on your behalf, linking to it, and earning you traffic that you don't have to pay for, traffic that people did not find you by searching for you organically, but they were referred to you by either a social media channel, which would be an outcome of sharing, or by someone linking to you on another site, maybe with a high domain authority. That's a great metric to measure brand awareness. Another one is first week traffic, especially when you think of brand awareness as having the work you do having an immediate impact on your brand. So if you think of that as an important outcome, then measuring how your content has done in the first week can be very helpful. This is also very helpful because Google seems to weigh the performance of your content early heavier than how your content does over time. And this has something to do with Google trying to incent people to share things that are new and interesting with the world, and not things that maybe have no news value or no real net new added value to the body of content that's already available for a certain topic. And then backlinks. Backlinks are a little bit related to earned traffic. But this could also be a long-term backlink on an influential property, on a wiki page, on a blog from an influential blogger that is really authoritative in your area, and that absolutely helps with your long-term brand awareness. Another short-term KPI that I have not listed here that is often now used to measure brand awareness is sort of your direct traffic to your website. How many people actually know your company's URL and type it in to go to your website directly without landing there through an organic search or a paid search. These are all relatively short-term KPIs. If you want to measure brand awareness with more of a long-term horizon, you would look at things like, are your keyword rankings, the search engine result rankings, the order in which you show up when people search for certain keywords, is that improving over time? Also called the SERP metric. Keywords that reach the most people in your target audience. If you have built that list, which I think is one of the first things to do when you think of persona development, writing down the sentences that you think people will type in when they are looking for something that you can offer, when they are developing and sharing a need. If you have that list of keyword combinations, then of course, that is a great long-term KPI. How are you doing based on that list, reaching the people in your target audiences and adjacent audiences, especially when you think of your marketing efforts over time, to also maybe expand to other audiences that might be interested in what you have to offer. And of course, key influencers. Finally, there are a lot of scores that try to measure long-term quality of your content and the authority that you have digitally. The best known is the Google Domain Authority and Page Authority, but there are also derivatives that are sometimes a little more accurate for what you're trying to measure, like the Moz score. There is something called a topical trust flow. Majestic, another SEO company, has come up with this metric that is very interesting. It sort of connects all your topical content together and looks at how the content grouping on a certain topic is performing, especially in relation to other competing content products online. And of course, good old press coverage. If you have editorial appearances, if you're quoted, etc., those are great long-term KPIs as well. But that's really only all that relevant, these KPIs, if you are doing content marketing to drive brand awareness. If the main reason you're doing content marketing is to engage with your audience, and this is often the case when you think of taking people through the buyer's journey, getting people to stay with you, manage churn, try to improve lifetime value of your clients by engaging with them and allowing them to learn more about what you have to offer and buy more from you. And then other KPIs would maybe be more relevant for you to measure content marketing impact. Here are a few examples. Short-term KPIs could be sessions where when you want to drive brand awareness, it's more about how many unique individuals see your content, see your brand. When you're focused on audience engagement, maybe sessions is just as relevant. Maybe the amount of time people come back is just as important as the amount of unique people that see your content. So this could be a little twist on sort of how do you measure the volume of traffic through sessions instead of unique page views when you care more about the audience engagement. Comments are a very strong KPI, of course, when people take the time to actually share their opinion, give you feedback, and type that in online, either on the place where you post your content, or other channels where they can connect with your content through social platforms, for example. Those are great KPIs. How many people share your content, especially when you think of sharing as a KPI that helps you tell something about the long-term value of your content. People sharing it because they think other people should know about what you have to say. There's educational value. Questions get answered that other people might be asking as well. And then finally, time on page is a very good metric to think about. Hey, is my content actually engaging people after they land on the content? If they come to my website, my webpage, are they staying to actually read what I have to say? Long-term KPIs could be more about, are people sort of mentioning or commenting on your blog in what I would call long-tail online discussions that have a long-term presence. A Quora discussion or a Reddit discussion, for example, has a long shelf life. Those discussions tend to be very relevant for Google, so they show up in search results. And if you get mentioned there, if people comment on your content in those discussions, that will have a very long-term impact. Of course, people sharing your content after you published it, after that first week of maybe initial excitement, is a great indicator that the content has value over time and will help you engage with your audience over time. And then finally, the holy grail, I guess, of long-term audience engagement through your content is if your content becomes a reference piece. And we all have examples like that. We all have examples of something that we keep sending to people when they are asking about a certain topic, or a certain topic comes up, where there's this one or two links that you all have in the back of your mind that you send to people when you think a certain topic is still very well described or referenced in a specific piece that you read a while ago. So these are great examples of long-term KPIs when your content is meant to drive audience engagement. A third scenario, and there are more than these three, but I thought these three were just a good sort of overview of when I look at content marketing, what the most common scenarios are. This third one is to drive leads, to be blunt. How do you use content to get more people to give you their contact details, to sign up for something, to basically become a participant in your sales funnel? Short-term KPIs are pretty straightforward. Conversion goals, and conversions can be measured in many ways. When you have a marketing automation tool, MA tool in place, that's typically where you would measure your conversions, something like HubSpot or Pardot or Marketo. But what I actually often see is not used as much as probably would be helpful is Google Analytics. Google Analytics, where you actually have a view of all your content, because it tracks all the different details, also what happens before people land on your website, has great conversion tracking built in. But you have to enable it, you have to configure it, you have to configure tracking, for example, if people land on a certain part of your website, if people complete a certain form, if people watch a video, if people stay on a certain piece of content for a certain time. All those things can be configured in Google Analytics as conversion goals, and that's often a missed opportunity. I find a lot of teams have not set up Google Analytics including conversion goals, which means you miss a lot of analytics insights that Google Analytics can give you for free. So that's number one, conversion goals achieved. Bounce rate is a critical metric when you think of demand generation. The worst thing that can happen if you want to drive a funnel is that people opt out of your funnel, and that's what bounce rate really says. It says, hey, they came and they left right away. whether that's on a website or it's on a landing page, or even the bounce rate on an email, which would be the equivalent of not clicking on an email when they get it in their inbox. Then the next step, of course, is the click-through rate. Once they see the email, do they actually click on the link, or on the website, do they click on whatever the next step is that you have defined? If there's an email, or if there's a direct mail, do they actually call the phone number? That's another version of click-through rate. Unique page views, I think, comes back here in the demand gen scenario, because for funnel health, you of course want to reach many people, unique potential prospects. So this is a KPI that I think is both relevant for scenario 1, brand awareness, but also for demand generation. And then long-term impact, long-term KPIs, churn. If you have a funnel where you drive a lot of leads and a lot of demand for customers who sign up but also abandon you again and may not renew, especially when you're in a subscription business, that means your demand gen is not as effective as it could be. So that's an important long-term KPI. And that, of course, then has to be attributed to what content was driving the clients who have a high churn rate versus which content drives people who stay or who buy more. And that gets to ARPU, average revenue per unit or per customer, a lifetime value. That's a combination of churn and average revenue per customer. Conversions to actual paid subscription if you have a trial program. So those are great long-term KPIs. So when we bring all those things together, those 3 scenarios, the way I like to frame that is that you can think about content marketing to drive brand awareness, which I describe as the wow part of content marketing. How do you get people to look up? How do you get people to notice you? How do you get people to talk about your brand, to share your brand? The next scenario is really about engaging your audience to stay with you through the buyer's journey, to stay with you through the customer journey and not leave and not churn. But in general, also just become more engaged with that audience, and they might buy more from you. They might have higher satisfaction scores. That's really the how part of content marketing, because that's mostly driven by educational content, information, answering questions, adding value, really. And then finally, we cannot forget about, in the end, we're doing all this because we want to achieve certain outcomes. And that's the now part. What do you want people to do next after they engage with your content, after they find your content, read it, click on it, visit your website? What is really the outcome that is your business objective? So that's how I sort of think about this, is the wow, how, and now parts of content marketing. And what I've done is try to solve the problem that when you look at these 3 scenarios, it's actually relatively labor intensive and sometimes complex to measure all these KPIs in an easy way. A lot of these KPIs that you see here, a lot of these metrics come from multiple sources. You get sessions, for example, here from Google Analytics. Comments might come from the blog itself, from your content management system. Shares come from the social platforms where people share. So you would have to go to Facebook itself to get the amount of shares. Another example, first week traffic. First week traffic is not easy to get. When you go to Google Analytics, you can see the traffic in a certain period of time, but you cannot really see, hey, out of these 10 blogs that all were maybe published on a different date, how was their first week performance? Google Analytics doesn't really tell you that. And backlinks, for example, doesn't come from Google Analytics. You need to get it from Ahref or from SEMrush or tools like that. So that's actually, that's sometimes challenging. So you have decided that there are a few metrics that you care most about, given what your objective with your content marketing investment is. And then you don't really have a good tool to measure that. So that's how we came up with wow, how, and now, and turned that into what we call a wow score, a how score, and a now score. And for the data geeks under you and who sort of are with me in the tribe of people who who think marketing has to be evidence-based, I also include the formulas here. So these KPIs are aligned a little bit with the 3 scenarios that I just shared, not perfectly. And I think for every content marketing effort, this could be a little different. But we came up with these and we're sort of tracking how this is working, if this is really a helpful way to measure the 3 scenarios that I just described. So in the WOW score, you see the combination of unique page views, shares, backlinks, and first week views. What's that first week impact of your content? Which, by the way, will also have will be a good indicator of how content will do over time from a Google search ranking perspective. How does, the how score is more about, do people engage with your content? And then the now score, is it leading to conversions? So I have a quick tool that I wanted to share that can help manage this. Let me get it to demo mode here. And this is a tool that you all have access to. I will share the URL and the login after the webinar. This is basically a tool that does nothing else than help you manage and measure your content marketing efforts. When you look at, in this case, the Chief Outsider content, you see all the blogs that we have published over time here. And you see 4 columns with metrics that you can sort of decide to use to measure how your content is performing. And what you find here is that a lot of the metrics that you can pick come from multiple sources. Author comes from the content management system you use. In our case, that is HubSpot. Bounce rate, average time on page, comes from Google Analytics. They probably come from your CMS. Difficult words comes from a natural language processing engine where you can actually, all this content gets pushed through that, and it has information on sort of how well it is written. Domain authority comes from Google. Facebook comments come from the actual Facebook sharing platform. So there's a different source of information. First week views, although it comes from Google Analytics, it doesn't get stored in Google Analytics. So this tool actually stores your first week view performance. So you can actually do an apple-to-apple comparison between all the content you've published. How did it do in this first week? And so there are many others here, other sharing metrics, things like Moz links and Moz rank that come from the Moz platform, that are proprietary metrics that a lot of people use to measure how is their content doing. And you see some other sharing platforms here. Some other natural language processing metrics. Polarity says something about, is your content written in a negative, with a negative tone or a very positive tone. Readability and reading level. Another great one is subjectivity. So these are all these natural language processing metrics that come from a sort of a very academic theory that was put into practice. And there are some great machine learning libraries now that we're using here to measure, for example, subjectivity. Is your content very opinionated or is it very objective? And then things like total backlinks that come from SEMrush. And the real point here is that you can pick your combination of metrics that you think is most relevant for what you're trying to achieve with your content. For example, let's pick unique page views. How many unique people have seen my content over time? So let this refresh here for a second. And then we can pick other metrics and sort of compare those. So when you look at total shares, what total shares is the combination of Facebook shares, Pinterest shares, StumbledUpon, LinkedIn, all the different shares that are measured here, sort of put together. I can sort on these columns, so I could say, hey, what is the average time on page, which is a great quality metric. And you can see that some of the pages that have a very high average time on page, for example, this blog is your business planning or strategic. Let me open this blog here. This blog is about a topic that seems to have high relevance because the people stay on the web page. Maybe the video has something to do with it. So Sean did a great job here, really pulling people in. So when they come here, they've clicked on this link, they actually stay here for a relatively long time. And then what we see here is that the amount of people that have actually consumed this content is relatively low. There's a low unique page views. And let's see if there's a correlation with something that I always find very interesting, and that's how the content did the first week. And we see that that has been relatively low. So the amount of people who got exposed to this great piece of content early on was low. It also led to not too many people sharing it, or maybe those two are related, maybe because it wasn't shared a lot. The amount of first week views was also limited. But then when you look at this quality metric, and let's pull in another quality metric, bounce rate, maybe we find that this is a gem of content. Yeah, bounce rate is relatively low versus these other higher bounce rates. So this is a great opportunity for our content marketing team to amplify, to maybe relaunch this piece of content and make sure a lot of people see it. I use the analogy of when you were an unknown writer and an unknown author, and you publish your first book. If you end up in the back of the bookstore, it's very hard to ever become a bestseller. To get going, you need a little bit of help. You need to get on that table in front of the bookstore that says new arrivals. And that's really what things like content amplification are about. How do you make sure when you've invested a lot of time in maybe research and producing your first content, that it actually gets seen by enough people early so that it will start ranking over time and get a lot of traffic over time. And that might mean a little bit of investment early on, but if you think of content as something, a gift that keeps on giving over time, especially when it ranks high, then investing in that early, even with a little bit of paid advertising, like the author hiring an agent, could be a very good investment of resources. So let's show one more thing and then go back to the presentation. Another set of metrics that you can see here are the actual WOW score, the HOW score, and the NOW score. So these are compound metrics. They use a few of the metrics based on the formula that I showed earlier to combine things that sort of that make up what you have defined as content marketing performance. And what you could do now is sort of look at, okay, what content that I have published in the past has had the most immediate impact, shown to you by this WOW score. And we see that there's a blog here on the Chief Outsider website that scores relatively high. Revenues not what they should be. And then we have a ranking here. The HOW score might be different. Let's see. What's the difference between sales and marketing? One of our most popular articles is scoring very high there. And that's probably driven by the sessions KPI, the sessions metric, how many people are actually not just seeing this, but also have come back to see that. And then the NOW score that is highly impacted by early success. I don't know anyone here has the highest NOW score on the Chief Outsiders blog. And this might also be because this is one where conversion tracking has been set up correctly and it drives actual click-through rates and conversions. Just something interesting for all of you to play around with. I will share the login in email. The URL, of course, is kalungi.com. There are some other cool tools here. You can actually set goals. You can, if you now have all this data, you can actually say, hey, if I know that for a certain metric, let's pick one here. Let's pick the NOW score. For a certain metric, the average over time is 61.43. I could set a goal that is, let's say, 65. And I could say, hey, I want to start tracking that. I want to know how I'm doing. I'm at 94% now in progress on whatever the goals are that I care about. And this is a nice way to make a quick report for your client if you're doing content marketing with a customer or with a marketing team to show sort of how things are progressing. And then finally, there's a quick tool here that can help you when you know what topics you want to do more content about. It's a very quick tool to help you, let's say, find things that are trending, topics that are popular right now. If you want to jump on the content bandwagon that's popular today, it will help you quickly see how popular the keywords are, what the value of those is, how competitive they are, etc. How many people are tweeting about it, about that topic, how many people are mentioning it in Google. So this is really just a quick side tool to help you see or certain topics that you may be publishing content about, how often are they talked about, what's trending, etc. So that is a quick view of Kalunji, a tool that can help you measure and manage these different scenarios of content marketing, in this case, branded as the WOW score, the house score, and the now score. Of course, measuring and analyzing content is not everything. You need to do a few other things too. Content marketing effort is really more than just writing blogs and pressing the publish button in HubSpot or in WordPress. You really need to spend almost the same amount of resources, time, to really plan and think about what do you want to be known for, what are the themes that you want to write about, especially when you think of content marketing as almost managing a magazine. It's an editorial process. You want to entertain your audience over time. So you really need to think about how do certain topics fit together. If you think of the Chief Outsiders blog, what's the overall sort of brand that we want to build there? What are the themes we want to make sure we cover, versus things having a relatively isolated, disconnected role to play. And then when you know that, you will produce your content, you will use sometimes outside resources to help with some of the production. You will use other analytics and research tools to source maybe external data, to do maybe a survey, or do research that helps you create great valuable content. And this is an area where I think a lot of organizations forget to put enough effort, both in planning and using analytics to plan, but also in the publishing and promotion part. If you have spent a lot of effort and maybe dollars in building great content, it is really important to make sure that that content stands a chance, that it actually has an opportunity to get legs, to really get going. And for that, you will need to make an effort. You will need to sometimes put more time and more effort into getting people that might be interested in your content to know about it, or influencers to link to it, or using some paid advertising dollars maybe to promote it to the right audiences. I love using things like Facebook and Twitter to promote new content to audiences that have clearly said they're interested in what this topic is about. It's really easy to target in both Twitter and Facebook. And Twitter, you can target the influencers that you think are mostly influencers in your category and who you would like to link to your content. You basically can target all their followers with a Twitter ad. And Facebook has other ways to do really precise targeting, LinkedIn as well. And then personalization. You need to, at some point, be able to use your Nurture marketing platform, your marketing automation, to get people different exposure levels to different types of content based on where they are in the buyer's journey, where they are in their customer journey, what sort of sub-personas they represent. You may have a group of customers, and some may use certain parts of your product more. Some might come to your website, to certain parts of your website. Some might actually be part of your newsletters. Others may have opted out, and there is specific content for them as well, for people who have opted out of your newsletter. Maybe there is specific content that you want to make sure the people who have opted out of your newsletter get to see. And then you can find ways to reach those people outside of your newsletter. So that's really about what I would call one-on-one marketing, one-to-one marketing, a very classic term in marketing, but not often practiced. And with content, you can really get very precise in how you make sure certain people see certain parts of your content marketing efforts. And then finally, especially when you know what's doing well, what content has high conversion rates, what content gets shared, make sure that it's not only amplified on a continuous basis. For example, when you have retargeting efforts, you could use your most successful content to fuel that retargeting effort and to make it very relevant. And then you can actually start paying for maybe some sponsored syndication relationships and get your content to show up in other places where you may pay a little bit of money for that to happen, but which could have huge scale and flywheel effects. Always be testing. Everything that you do in marketing, but especially with content, can always be done in either an A/B variation or even a multivariant way. Have multiple titles, have multiple formats in your A blog, for example, if you have an article, you can do 2 or 3 versions with an image starting at your article or an image below the fold. You can do all kinds of great testing to see what's working better. I started with saying this was really about execution of marketing, content marketing, performance management, and measuring. And the relevance and the reputation part sort of come before. I just wanted to quickly touch on the relevance part. Personas and understanding what your audience looks like, what are the target segments that you're writing for, that you're doing content marketing for. This has really evolved in the last 10, 15 years, where personas used to be very much about demographics and psychographics, which is sort of the first bullet. We got to be very focused on addressing these second and third bullets as well. What are people looking for? And you can find a lot out based on what search patterns are, what people tell you when they give you feedback, when they leave comments, when they talk with your sales team, when they talk with your support team. And of course, then what's driving their decisions. And that's often also an area where you can use A/B testing to learn more about your audience. And that is really the way to make what I would call Personas 2.0 complete. How do you complete personas beyond the demographic and the psychographic information? If you want to get started with content, there's really no reason not to keep this relatively simple. If you listen to what your customers tell you, what they tell you about what you have done for them, you can ask your sales team to give you information about what your customers tell them, or what they ask for, what are the things that take up a lot of the sales conversations, because those are probably things that are important for your customers. The same goes for your support team when they talk with people who need help. It's very easy to ask your support team to use the why questioning technique to understand when a customer is struggling with something, when they have a question, to ask why is that important for them? And why is that important for them? And get to the core of what business outcome is being driven by how they're using your product, how they're using your service, etc. Research is a great way to fuel your content engine, especially now that it's so easy to do quick research with social media channels, or to do surveys with things like Survey Gizmo and SurveyMonkey. Make sure you always look at your funnel and the customer journey, the buyer journey, as an opportunity to get content ideas, right? When things are getting stuck in the funnel, when people opt out, when people leave, when people bounce, all those are great content opportunities. Is there something that was missing? Is there something that they were looking for that they couldn't find? And then finally, when you have conversations with your customers, with your leadership team, with constituents, with people who have interesting things to say that are relevant for your audience, always ask if you are allowed to record the conversation. And then if you are allowed to, then use that to create content as appropriate. Also, don't wait too long with creating content because you want it to be perfect. The best way to create great content libraries is to just start writing and then learn from that, and publish it, ship and test, and you will get better at it over time. Finally, there's still many websites that when you do an SEO audit, that basically are not giving content its proper due because the content is not being crawled by Google correctly. Google does not see the content, or content is published duplicate. So Google does not know what of the two versions is the authoritative one, and will basically ignore both. So there's a lot of detail behind this bullet, stopping hiding, but this is really about make sure your SEO, your on-page SEO, the SEO that you control, that's about your content, your website, that you have that house in order, because otherwise all these efforts could be wasted. It does work. I always like to end on just a quick proof point. This was an organization with a very small content marketing team that started doing content marketing and showed great results. The green color here is organic traffic. So that is really when people type in something in the Google search engine, a need they have, and they would find this website, they would land on this website. The blue part is what's called direct traffic. a great proxy for brand awareness, which also grew significantly over time. And then you will actually see here that there's a very small sliver of red here in June, July, August, and that actually disappears in September. That was actually paid search marketing. So sometimes to get your content marketing team going, to make it also a very high priority, you have to turn off your paid search engine marketing investments. It's almost a cultural thing where you say, hey, let's force ourselves to be so relevant. We don't use paid for a few months. And that's what you see here in September, October, November. And then in December, paid marketing was turned on again because it is a great vehicle to amplify content, to do things, to have the right mix of organic and paid marketing levers, to the earlier slide about balancing your efforts. But it could be sometimes helpful to stop paid marketing for a while. But as I said, this is a small team, a few people doing content marketing. And what's interesting is that these are mostly summer interns here in this period where we got going. And they were not part of the team anymore here. So you had about 4 or 5 people in the team during the summer months. And then in the fall, there was really only 1 person left. But once you have content out there that starts ranking, this is sort of a flywheel that keeps on giving, especially when the content is good, because when the content is good and starts ranking and people actually stay on it, they don't bounce off, they convert, your content relevance will be noticed by Google and your search rankings will go up. And you see that this had a huge impact on the performance of this specific website. It went from about 9,000 unique visitors to over 76,000 in just a year. This doesn't only work at a small scale, this is a much larger website with millions of visitors. Also a team that started to do content marketing here in the summer. And here again, you see these are basically duplicate colors because they were measured in 2 different ways. But organic is both the green part here and the yellow part. So you see that that green and yellow part has also grown significantly over time. And direct are the dark gray and the dark blue that have also grown significantly over time. So this is also an effect of content marketing. And then finally, once you have content, you can actually do nurturing. So these are sales numbers of this organization where the conversion went up from about 11.6% to 30% conversion of nurtured leads versus conversion of leads that were not being nurtured with content. Finally, a few references to books and some URLs if you want to get deeper on the topic of managing and measuring content marketing. SEMrush, Moz, Majestic, Ahrefs, those are very well-known websites that deal with the digital side of content marketing. Things like SEO, content planning, keyword research. Ahrefs and Majestic have special metrics, Moz as well, the Moz score, topical flow quality that are very interesting to look into if you want to geek out on this topic. Then a few books here quickly. Permission Marketing, Seth Godin, really the foundation of striking that right balance between being relevant and not making noise when you do content marketing. The Art of SEO is not really just a technical book, it's the Bible of how the foundational mechanics of search engines like Google have impacted how information gets disseminated in the world and what that means for how you now think about content marketing, how that is foundational for your funnel, for your marketing funnel. Jim Blessingame, a great friend who wrote a book, The Age of the Customer, that's really about how the tables are turned and the customer is now in charge based on what they're looking for, how they choose to engage with you, when and where, and how relevancy then is really the name of the game. And The Age of the Seller is sort of behind us. Duct tape marketing, I love the work that Jans has done on very small team, basic marketing capability. What do you do when you don't have marketing, when you have one person who has 4 hours in a week to do marketing? And the duct tape marketing methodology is just a great framework to think about what do you do when you have very limited resources. And content marketing is one of the foundational things that duct tape marketing is built on. Contagious, a little more challenging, a very good book on sort of how do you build content that actually gets going, that can become viral, that gets a following, and sort of what are the things that you think about when you build content that drive those contagious effects. Thinking Fast and Slow takes that a little further and thinks about how do you drive people's behavior, both on conversions, for example. What do people do when they see something for the first time, when they see a website, when they open up your mail, they read the subject line of your email. Thinking Fast and Slow is the fundamental work on sort of how you influence people's behavior by what they see, what they hear. Another book by Seth Godin, and especially for content marketing teams that have a hard time to get going or to publish and are procrastinating in the planning phase or in the analytic phase. Just Do It is a great recipe for that. Small book, great to give to some of your content marketing team members if they need to get going. I love Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath, when you think of content also as a way to position yourself versus the competition, and how do you do that in a disruptive way? How do you look big when you're small and things like that? David and Goliath is a great book for that. And then finally, sort of when you think of the now score and the outcomes of content marketing being the ultimate goal, how do you drive certain conversions? How do you get people to do what you would like them to do? Then nobody should skip Daniel Ariely's work on how people make decisions. And this is sort of the best book, I think, to start with when you want to do funnel optimization, when you want to build great landing pages, when you want to improve the conversion of your emails, etc. So these are sort of just a few quick books. With that, I have about 10 minutes for questions. So let me unmute everybody. So thank you for staying with me. Please go on mute if you're not speaking.
Hey, Stan.
Yeah, let me know what you guys think.
Hey, Stan.
Yeah.
It's Adrian. Hey, awesome job. This is tremendous. Question, very practical question. Within the marketing organization, especially a smaller one, how do you resource this effort? Do you, in your experience, has that set in product marketing, demand gen, or is it something that, how do you get enough resourcing around this to do a good job at it, and who owns it?
That's a great question. I think that content marketing is one of the parts of marketing where you can actually work with external resources relatively easily. I think it's very easy to find good writers and to test them, to let them almost do a pilot project for you and see what works, what doesn't. You can measure everything, so it's relatively easy to hold content marketing resources accountable as well. What is very important though is that before you go that external route, that you do some of the foundational work yourself, getting that full keyword list that sort of reflects what an ideal audience looks like, what you think they are asking for, what they're searching for. That is almost something that you need to do with your executive leadership. You cannot outsource that part. You cannot ask your content marketing vendor to come up with your prioritized keyword list. You cannot ask them to write your persona for you. I think, but if you do that yourself with your leadership team to really think about who's our audience and what do we want, what do we offer them, then after you do that really well, you can outsource the production part. I think you can outsource the amplification part. Let me go back to that slide with sort of the different components of a content marketing effort. If you think about this, I think the measure analytics, you can outsource some of the execution, but you've got to decide what you want to measure. The planning and scheduling, I think you need to keep that relatively close and really think about how do I want to develop my brand over time and what do I want the themes to be. The production you can outsource, I think, as long as you have your things like keywords and priorities done at a high quality level, or your personas. And then again, publishing, promotion, and maybe even amplification. You can outsource some of that to people who may be an agency, for example, who can engage with influencers to share your content with them so they can link to it, etc. Does that help, Adrian?
It does. One quick follow-on. I know you guys, some other people have questions too. When it comes to the production part, the thing that I generally face is my clients saying, my product or industry is unique. I can't outsource the production of materials because they won't understand my space. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I do think that's where I go back to, you have to hire a few people and almost A/B test their work. And some of them will pick up on your space really quickly, even if they didn't know about it before. Others bring a ton of knowledge and you might pay a little extra for that. One tip that I have found to work is when you have an industry magazine or there's a publication that's really well read in your industry, flip to the third or the fourth page where you see the contributing editors and contributing writers, and you can find people there who are often freelancers who write for that specific publication, and you can often contact them and find out if they are willing to write for you. But you will probably pay a little more than a generic writer. And I would give both a chance. I would try to find some people who have established credibility in your industry, and also see if there are people who can pick it up really quickly.
Got it. Thanks, Sam.
Stein, this is Beth Van Story. In the one slide in Kalungi that you showed, or however you say it, and can you tell us again how you say it?
Kalungi, yeah.
Okay. I noticed that you tracked, when you were doing the research piece to get content ideas, you were tracking Twitter and it looked like Google Plus. Why not LinkedIn? Are you not able to do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn was in there as well. The only one that you cannot do is Twitter. All the others are in there, actually.
Okay.
Twitter closed this off about, I think, 2 months ago. They closed the API to that. But LinkedIn is in there, I think.
Oh, okay. Because it looked like it was the bird and the G, you know? So it looked like Twitter in the middle. Okay, I'll let some other people ask some questions. I could ask a million, but I'll let someone else go.
And please, I have to actually go in 5 minutes, but we can absolutely continue this over email as well. So please share your questions.
Okay, since no one else is jumping in, I'm going to go ahead and ask another one. When you're setting up Kalungi, I mean, can you set it up yourself, or do you need to buy professional services?
No, I have a dream that maybe one day I can sell this to some of your clients, but right now.
That's the page, by the way, I was talking about, where it would look like Twitter and Google.
Yeah, so you can basically go in by using demo@chiefoutsiders.com, and then the password is also demo. But I think I'm still sharing my screen. So demo@chiefoutsiders.com, password demo, and then you get an environment that's already configured for our blog. If you want to use it for your clients, just send me a note and I'll set you up. It does need a little bit of work on the back end. It's basically a one-day turnaround, because some of the CMS systems, let's say Drupal or HubSpot or WordPress, they use some of the fields differently based on what WordPress template they use. But that's really the only thing. Other than that, there's no setup required.
Hey Stein, this is Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Good morning. This is awesome. Thank you, by the way, for doing this for all of us. Quick question: as we think about our own personas, there's lots of great stuff in here, you know, that to scale up on. What are the areas you'd point us to first of what you've shown this morning to get right?
Yeah, this is my favorite question, Gary. Thanks for asking. I think people can get a little too academic about personas, or it can get very expensive very quickly. The first thing that I think you always want to do is build that list of, let's say, 100 keyword combinations. These are really natural language questions, long tail keywords, 5-6 words, that people that you think are great potential customers that would have a high conversion rate would type into Google. And by not outsourcing that to an agency or to an intern, but actually sitting down with your leadership team and really making an effort to write up those 100 sentences, or even if you can only come up with 20, that you think people who are most relevant to you would type in to Google when they're looking for you. And this is all B2B. B2C is a little different, of course. That is the best persona, I think, starting point that you can have. Also, because once you do that and it's a high quality list, it is very easy to activate on. You can share that with your agency, with your SEM maybe vendor. You can use it to do your content planning. And a lot of people don't spend time in building a high quality keyword list.
Great. Thank you, Stein. Awesome. Great job. Thank you.
With that, thanks for all showing up. And thanks everyone for joining.